Hi everyone, Itch the Knee I Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Lucki album, Flawless Like Me. This is the debut full-length LP of Chicago rapper Lucki, a guy who for years now has been playing the long game, taking his sweet time building up to the moment of a commercial album release, because the guy's been dropping singles and mixtapes for quite a while now, originally making waves when cloud rap was still in its prime in the early 2010s with projects like Alternative Trap and Body High. His sound has evolved quite a bit since then, but still plugs very deeply into this druggy, laid-back, disconnected vibe, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that. There's plenty of very psychedelic and surreal music to be had out there in hip-hop today. It's really a question of whether or not Lucki has made a defining record in this lane. Have his years of work actually added up into a sound and a skill level that leaves an impression? And in my opinion, the answer to that would be no, not really. Listening to this record, it's actually kind of mind-blowing. This guy has been at this for around a decade, and all that we now have to show for it is 22 tracks of very messy odds and ends. It's actually kind of embarrassing how little there is to this record. The flows are blatantly unimpressive, rhythm, breath control, consistency, none of that is here. On top of that, Lucki's creaky vocal tone reminds me of a less dynamic Kodak Black, or maybe a young Lil Wayne without the charisma or pen game or much of anything. But you know what? There's a lot of rap artists out there who may not be able to count a silver tongue as a part of their arsenal. Maybe they make up for it by being able to sing, or have an ear for a hook, or interesting production choices. But Lucki seemingly on this record doesn't have that either. I'm really trying to find something nice to say about this record, I am. But again, the flows and vocals are so one-dimensional and progressively get more and more annoying the deeper I get into the record. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with getting high in the booth, Lucki maybe sounds just a bit too high, especially with how he's stumbling through tracks like VVS Kieski. On the song Geeked and Blessed, there's a bar that he drops where he says he's higher than he's ever been, and it sounds like it. And look, on any given song, there's a degree to which this kind of stuff is okay, but in Lucki's case, it's just too far. It's too lifeless. It's too comatose. It's too soulless. It's too out of touch with reality. And definitely not in a fun way that's mutually intoxicating for the listener. Now, I will say this though, this lack of composure occasionally on a track or two will collide with like a glimpse of depression or a troubled past, especially on Droughtsky as well as the track DNA. And of course these shows of emotion do make for a more compelling listen, but ultimately I come away from these tracks more worried about the guy genuinely than I am just kind of simply enjoying them. The beats on this thing are also underwhelming as hell. There's maybe only a couple instances of an instrumental, or maybe a horn line or a synth bit sounding bold or colorful. The unseasoned perks and washed out synthesizers on the opener, for example, are so quiet it's laughable. How are we this far into a career and we're getting instrumentals that are so painfully generic that you can get them just about anywhere? The beat on Brazy Weekend, despite its wild title, is similarly toothless. And the production, as well as the vocals on Life Mocks Art, are so awkward that it literally does sound like an attempt at mocking music as a concept. Even Tay Keith's beat on Been a Minute is no match for Lucki's very intimately mic'd vocal fry. I hear the back of this dude's throat more than I actually hear the clap on this track. And of course there's not really too much to report on the songwriting side either, as there's not a whole ton of lyrical focus across many of these tracks, and there's not a lot of choruses to these songs either outside of some limply repeated refrains here and there, most of which are so clunky and delivered so flatly and redundantly, there's not much about them that would actually be worth remembering. Lucki even fails to fully capitalize on moments like Capital Denim, for example, featuring Future, which, like, this is a pretty huge name to have on your project. You figured you would want, like, all your ducks in a row on this track, but instead, again, there's no strong hook, not a whole ton of chemistry with Hendrix, though I will say Lucki vocally does sound a bit more awake here. Beat is generic as hell, and again we have a very abrupt ending that cuts the song short just before 2 minutes. I guess Babyface Ray on the song White House is a bit better of a fit for Lucki in terms of mutual energy, but the end result is just Babyface and Lucki sounding like they're in a competition to see who can be more sleepy on the beat. Good thing that horn line on the track kind of goes. I guess I do commend Lucki for taking the lion's share of the runtime on this project. It's definitely not overloaded with features. The quality of this thing really sits on his shoulders. And yeah, that's kind of the issue. He doesn't really have the delivery, the flow, the lyricism, the versatility, the focus, or the energy level to be commanding anyone's attention for almost an hour. There are pockets here and there on this record that are somewhat of a vibe, but most of the time on this thing, the vibe is rancid and boring, as well as getting old fast. The final moments as well on this project are no more special than the initial moments on it. You could pretty much remix this track list into any order that you want and still have the same effect. An already lukewarm bathtub of expired cough syrup growing colder and colder and colder. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 1 on this record. Transition, have you given this thing a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, a Lucki forever.